Hi, my name is Kevin Jeffers. I'm Assistant Operations Manager here at NAPCK, responsible for dock operations. My safety commitment is to respectfully call attention to any unsafe behaviors that I observe. Today I'll be sharing a recent Kaizen activity that was completed for our dock operation for the bulk unload process. We'll begin by reviewing the previous condition. From the diagram you can see that previously we were utilizing 6 team members to complete the unload process. Each team member was assigned as part of a 2-person team working out of 2 dock doors. So 6 team members, 6 dock doors total. The 2-person team worked as team member A being responsible for the unload and the dock prep function. So they would physically unload between 4 and 6 stacks of freight, filling up a corral, and then they would exit their counterbalance to complete the dock prep function. Once that was completed for the entire corral, they would then hand that freight off to the conveyance driver, who would enter the corral and move the freight to the next point of rest. We highlighted several areas of concern related to our 5 main KPIs, so we'd like to review those now for the previous condition. Number 1, beginning with safety, there was numerous incidences of machine-to-machine and man-to-machine interface. You can see from the intersection of the conveyors, there's a lot of cross-traffic between the 3 different conveyance drivers trying to access the conveyors. Number 2, for quality, during the dock prep process, the primary function was to scan the freight via the AS400. However, there were also some manual steps such as handwriting the next destination onto each case. This provided an opportunity for errors to occur in the process. Number 3 was lead time. Because large amounts of freight were staged at a given time through 3 different unload processes, there was a lot of freight stagnation present on the dock. Productivity, wait time was incurred from the conveyance driver waiting for the unload dock prep function to be completed, and also between the conveyance drivers waiting to access the conveyors to drop off their freight. Lastly, space concerns, we utilized multiple dock doors, 6 in total, as well as multiple corrals to complete the task on a daily basis. Next, we'd like to share a little bit about our Kaizen process and how we were able to effectively change those 5 conditions. Focusing in on our specific purpose for the Kaizen, we highlighted 3 key areas. Number 1 being safety with the separation of man-machine and machine-to-machine. Number 2, that applied to safety and productivity, was to reduce the team member burden of having to get on and off the forklift throughout their shift. Lastly was lead time, by eliminating stagnation and trying to introduce a one-by-one job process. The first step in our Kaizen process was to conduct an MIFC activity to better visualize and understand the flow of freight throughout the receiving dock operation. Focusing in on receiving, we highlighted 3 key overall areas of concern. Number 1 being complex flow, how often the freight went linearly throughout the process versus different points of convergence and divergence that caused the freight to take a different flow and path. Number 2 was productivity. Again, as we talked about earlier, there was wait time present in the process, so we were not providing full daily work to our team members. And lastly was a stagnation of freight located in the corrals. Next, you see a different view of how the flow was complex. You can see the 6 dock doors that were utilized for the operation, the amount of freight divergence and convergence that was present to ultimately go to 2 final points of rest, either stock keeping in the home position or shipping out to our customer. Next step was to conduct time studies to gather information on the work elements that were present in the operation for each of the processes. The Yamazumi shown here represent the results of that time study, breaking down on the bar chart the elements of work. The top dashed red line represents the amount of wait time that was occurred in the processes as well. You can see from the unload and dock prep side that our cycle time requirement was 1105 minutes with a 450-minute available time window. The process requirement is 2.5 compared to actual staffing of 3. Similar on the conveyance side, the process requirement was 850 minutes, resulting in 1.9 process requirements, and again we were staffing with 3. So knowing that we wanted to reduce the wait time and reduce the number of processes required, we took a look at the work elements that could be reduced. So the non-value added or the MUDA elements that were present were identified on this next chart. You can see that we highlighted 4 key areas that we wanted to reduce or eliminated. 2 of those applying to dock prep, being the flow strip and then also handwriting on the cases. The motion of MUDA from the counterbalance driver having to transition to the dock prep process, and then also moving from larger batch processing to stack by stack. By eliminating those elements, we were able to reduce the cycle time requirement from 1106 minutes down to 889 for the unload and dock prep process. Similar on the conveyance side, we were able to reduce the conveyance time and also the wait time, reducing cycle time requirements from 851 minutes down to 800. The next chart shows the Yamazumis that were collected in the after condition. Here you can see that 2 processes were eliminated, one from the unload side and then one from the conveyance side. In the after condition, process requirements were 1.9 for unload dock prep and 1.8 for conveyance. So we are now able to staff the process with 4 team members where 6 were previously required. In addition, you can see the more simplified flow. By eliminating the 2 processes and 2 dock doors required, the flow is much more linear now than it was in the previous condition. To summarize our results, for lead time, our lead time process was able to be reduced by 9.7 minutes. Previous condition had a lead time of 13.5 minutes. After is reduced to 3.85. That time reduction was from the dock prep process and the elements that we were able to reduce from that. In addition, the cost reduction for the 2 processes per shift that were eliminated gives us an annual cost savings of $370,000. Next steps to continue the Kaizen process. Number 1 is continued focus on safety, machine-to-machine separation between the unload and conveyance drivers. There is still an opportunity, while we have good flags and good visuals in place, that team members could enter the corral at the same time. For number 2, on the productivity side, we want to continue to Kaizen to reduce wait time and conveyance. Process reduction going from 2 down to 1 requirement for conveyance. Lastly, we'd like to revisit our 5 KPI and show the after condition and improvements that were made. Beginning again with safety, you can see from the diagram that the 6-person team has now been reduced to 4 team members working out of 4 dock doors. The job assignments are now 1 team member assigned specifically for unload. Team member number 2 is dock prep, with 2 team members assigned to the conveyance functions. Within the conveyance functions, we have visualized the floor and separated into zones so that team members do not interact or cross over their zones. The yellow line represents a separation point for the 2 team members. In addition, you can see the blue zone highlighted now represents the 1 baton handoff point where counterbalances or exchange freight. Key visual there is to indicate that only 1 counterbalance driver can be inside the blue zone at any given time. For quality, we were able to eliminate the handwriting process, thus eliminating the chance for errors to be made in the dock prep process. Lead time, stagnation was reduced. Previous condition, you would see between 4 and 6 stacks of freight per corral. Now there is only 1 stack per corral and no more than 2 total. For productivity, we were able to reduce wait time. Team members no longer have to wait for large batch processing to be completed. They're able to process and move in stack by stack. With the separation of counterbalance drivers, we also do not have to wait for a team member to disengage from a conveyor prior to them being able to access it. And lastly, with space, we were able to eliminate 2 dock doors and reduce the corral size to approximately 25% of the floor space that was previously required. Lastly, we would like to show the operation in process.